The great hall of the Galactic Council fell silent. 12 different alien species sat around the massive circular table, their various forms of breathing creating a soft background rhythm that had suddenly stopped. Ambassador Kethver of the Zephyrian Empire stood at his seat, his blue-scaled hands trembling slightly as he held a datapad. "You assaulted Earth," he said again, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. The words hung in the air. Every eye, whether compound, single, or triple, turned toward the hegemony delegation. Ambassador Veltar, a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His species had ruled through force for centuries, but now he looked like a child caught stealing. "That is impossible," said Council Leader Jarane, her tentacles moving in agitation. "Earth is under the Terran Accords. No contact is permitted. We all agreed to this 5 decades ago." Kethver's scales darkened, a sign of deep distress among his people. 3 months ago, the hegemony launched a pacification fleet toward the Sol system. 200 warships. Their mission was to subjugate the primitive humans and claim Earth as a colony world. The chamber erupted. Representatives began speaking in their native languages, translators working frantically to keep up with the chaos. Some delegates stood. Others made threatening gestures with whatever appendages they possessed. The sound was overwhelming. "Order!" Jarane's voice boomed through the hall speakers. Slowly, the noise died down. "Ambassador Veltar, explain yourself immediately." Veltar remained seated, his 4 arms crossed defensively. "The hegemony recognizes no authority over our military actions. If we chose to expand our territory, that is our right." "You're right?" The voice belonged to Ambassador Kirith of the Stellar Confederation. Her species looked almost like humans, but with silver skin that glowed faintly. "We have laws. We have treaties. The Terran Accords specifically forbid any contact with Earth." "Those accords were signed by fools," Veltar replied coldly. "Earth is a primitive world with valuable resources. The humans barely have chemical rockets. They fight among themselves with crude weapons. They were easy prey." Kethver's scales shifted to an even darker blue. "Were Ambassador Veltar? You speak in past tense." A new silence fell over the chamber. This one felt different. Heavier, more dangerous. The fleet completed its mission. 3 months ago, Veltar said, but his voice lacked confidence. "Earth is now under hegemony control." "Then, where are your ships?" asked Ambassador Wexmol of the TriStar Alliance. His insect-like form clicked and chittered as he spoke. "Where are your reports? Where is your colonial administrator?" Veltar's gray skin darkened slightly. Among his species, this was a sign of uncertainty. Communications across such vast distances take time. "The fleet is busy establishing control and processing the native population. 3 months is more than enough time for a status report," Kirith pointed out. "Your standard protocol requires communication within 2 weeks of any successful conquest. The situation on Earth is complex," Veltar said. Kethver activated his datapad and projected a hologram above the table. It showed star charts, fleet movements, and communication logs. This data was provided by Zephyrian Intelligence. "It shows the hegemony fleet's departure from your military base at Kepler 442. It shows their trajectory toward Sol. And it shows." He paused dramatically. "Absolutely nothing after they reached the Earth system." The hologram zoomed in on the Sol system. It showed the last known positions of the hegemony ships as they entered the outer edges of human space. Then nothing. No signals, no status updates, no victory broadcasts that usually followed hegemony conquests. "Perhaps their communications equipment failed," suggested Ambassador Nexvara of the Void Walkers. Her species rarely spoke, preferring to observe, which made her words carry extra weight. "All of it?" Kethver's voice rose. 200 ships. And every single communication array failed simultaneously? That would be statistically impossible. Jarane's tentacles writhed slowly as she thought. The council leader had survived 3 centuries of galactic politics, and she recognized danger when she saw it. Ambassador Veltar, I am ordering an immediate investigation. A council fleet will be dispatched to nitrogen monoxide. Veltar's shout surprised everyone. The Gemini ambassador had jumped to his feet, his forearms spread wide. No council ships will enter the Sol system. This is Hegemony territory now. If it is your territory, Kirith said quietly, then you should have no problem with us visiting. Veltar's skin had gone almost black now. The native population has diseases that could affect other species. The fleet is in quarantine while they process this threat. Ambassador Wexmol's insect form clicked rapidly, the equivalent of laughter. Diseases? The Hegemony has conquered 47 worlds. Your medical technology can handle any primitive biological threat. This is different, Veltar insisted. How is it different? Jarane demanded. For a moment, Veltar said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "We don't know." The chamber fell silent again. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The weight of those 3 words settled over the council like a heavy blanket. Kethver was the first to break the silence. You don't know because they're all dead, aren't they? Your fleet, your soldiers, your ships, something happened to them. That's impossible, Veltar said, but his voice shook. Humans are primitive. They have no space fleet. Their weapons are crude chemical explosives and simple nuclear devices. They couldn't possibly threaten a Hegemony fleet. Then where are your ships? Kirith asked again. Veltar had no answer. Ambassador Nexvar spoke again, her voice like ice. The Terran Accords were not signed to protect other species from humans. They were signed to protect humans from us. But some of us wondered if we had it backward. What do you mean? Demanded Veltar, Nexvar's dark eyes fixed on him. Some of us wondered if the Accords were meant to protect us from them. The implications of her words rippled through the chamber. Ancient fears, buried under decades of assumed superiority, began to surface. Earth was supposed to be safe, primitive, harmless. If that was wrong, what else had they been wrong about? Jarane's voice was carefully controlled when she spoke again. This session is adjourned pending further investigation. Ambassador Veltar, you will provide all data regarding this unauthorized mission. And you will pray to whatever gods your species worships that your fleet is simply experiencing technical difficulties. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, none of them spoke. Each was lost in their own thoughts, wondering the same terrible question. What had the Hegemony awakened? 3 weeks had passed since the emergency council session, and the silence from the Sol system had become deafening. Ambassador Veltar of the Hegemony sat alone in his quarters aboard the council station, staring at a blank communication screen. He had sent 17 messages to Fleet Command, each more desperate than the last. Not one had received a reply. In the council chambers, emergency meetings had become daily events. Jarane had authorized long-range scans of the Sol system using the most powerful sensors the galactic community possessed. The results made no sense. The system appears normal, reported Chief Scanner Yixlan, his multiple eye stalks focusing on different data streams simultaneously. 8 planets, asteroid belt, single star. But, prompted Kirith, leaning forward in her chair. There are no artificial signatures. No fleet formations, no mining operations, no colonial infrastructure. If the Hegemony conquered Earth 3 months ago, they should have established at least basic facilities by now. Ambassador Wexmol clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Perhaps the conquest was more difficult than expected. Human resistance could have delayed construction. Kethver shook his head, his blue scales rippling with agitation. Hegemony's standard procedure is to establish orbital platforms within 72 hours of any successful invasion. They would need those platforms to process the native population and extract resources. Maybe the population was larger than expected, suggested Ambassador Nexvara. Human census data from our last observation indicated nearly 8 billion individuals. Veltar finally spoke from his seat. His gray skin had remained dark for days now, a sign of ongoing stress among his people. The fleet was equipped to handle populations 10 times that size. Even if every human fought to the death, it would not explain the silence. The words hung heavy in the air. Everyone knew what Veltar was not saying. If the fleet was silent, it was probably dead. Jarene's tentacles moved in slow, worried patterns. Ambassador Veltar, I must ask again. Do you have any other information about this mission? Any detail you might have overlooked? Veltar was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. The mission commander was Admiral Cuxthor. He was my clutch brother. We shared the same spawning pool. If he were alive, he would have found a way to contact me. This admission sent a chill through the chamber. Among the hegemony species, clutch bonds were sacred. If Veltar believed his brother was dead, the situation was even worse than they thought. What do we know about human military capabilities? Asked Ambassador Rendok of the Outer Reaches. His species looked like walking trees, and when he spoke, his voice rustled like leaves in wind. Kethver activated his datapad. According to our last survey, conducted 15 years ago, humans possess chemical rockets capable of short-range spaceflight. They have nuclear weapons, but crude ones. Their largest warships are chemical-powered vessels that cannot leave their atmosphere. They have no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no faster-than-light capabilities. 15 years is a long time, Kirith pointed out. Species can advance rapidly when pressured. Not that rapidly, Wexmol countered. To go from chemical rockets to fleet-killing capabilities in 15 years would require technological advancement beyond anything we've seen before. Nexvara stood slowly, drawing all attention to her. The Voidwalkers rarely spoke unless they had something important to say. There is something we are not discussing. Something we should be discussing. Which is? Jarene asked. Why were the Terran Accords really created? The question created an uncomfortable silence. Most of the current ambassadors had not been present when the Accords were signed 50 years ago, but they all knew the official story. Earth was declared off-limits to protect its primitive inhabitants from galactic civilization. The Accords were created to preserve a developing species, Veltar said automatically. Were they? Nexvara asked. Or were they created because someone was afraid? Kirith frowned. Afraid of what? Humans were barely able to reach their own moon when the Accords were signed. Nexvara moved to the chamber's data terminal and began pulling up historical files. I have been researching. The vote to create the Terran Accords was not unanimous. In fact, it barely passed. But what is interesting is which species voted for it most strongly. The holographic display showed voting records from 50 years ago. The strongest supporters of the Accords were not the peaceful species, as most assumed. They were the military powers, the ancient civilizations, the species that had survived the longest in the galaxy. The Eternal Dominion voted for the Accords, Nexvara continued. They had existed for 10,000 years when that vote was taken. The Crystal Hierophants, who had explored half the galaxy, voted for them. The Machine Collective, who fear nothing, voted for them. Why would the most powerful species in the galaxy be concerned about protecting one primitive world? Ambassador Wexmol's clicking grew rapid and agitated. You are suggesting they were afraid of humans? That is impossible, is it? Nexvara pulled up another file. How many species have we encountered that develop spaceflight independently? The answer appeared on the screen. 47. And how many of those species developed spaceflight without outside help or contact? A new number appeared. 3. Humans are one of those 3, Nexvar said quietly. Most species develop space travel because they meet us first. We inspire them, or threaten them, or help them. But humans developed it completely alone. That is unusual. Kethver's scales had gone pale. You think the ancient species knew something we don't? I think the ancient species have long memories, Nexvar replied. And I think they remembered something about humans that made them vote to keep them isolated. Veltar stood abruptly. This is ridiculous conspiracy thinking. Humans are primitive. They cannot have destroyed a hegemony fleet. Then where is your fleet? Kirith asked for what felt like the 100th time. Veltar had no answer. Jarane made a decision. I am authorizing a long-range probe mission. Unmanned scouts will approach the Sol system and attempt to gather detailed information. That violates the Terran Accords. Veltar protested. The hegemony already violated them when they launched their invasion, Jarane replied coldly. We need to know what happened. The probe mission was launched 6 hours later. 3 small, stealthy ships equipped with the most advanced sensors available began the long journey toward Earth. They would take 2 weeks to reach the Sol system. Assuming faster-than-light travel was safe, that night, alone in his quarters, Veltar tried once more to contact his brother's fleet. The communication channel opened, transmitted his message across the vast distances of space, and returned nothing but silence. For the first time since the invasion was planned, Veltar allowed himself to consider the impossible. What if the humans had won? The thought terrified him more than he wanted to admit. The emergency beacon was weak, barely detectable, and it took the Council rescue ship 3 days to locate its source. When they found it, floating in the empty space between star systems, it was a single hegemony escape pod. The small craft was damaged, its hull scarred by energy weapons that no Council member could identify. Inside the pod, the rescue team found 3 survivors. Ambassador Veltar arrived at the medical station within hours. He pushed past the doctors and technicians, his forearms trembling as he approached the recovery ward. Through the transparent barrier, he could see them. Sub-Commander Yakarin, Navigation Officer Telmar, and Engineer Dexlock. All 3 were awake, but their eyes held a look Veltar had never seen before in hegemony soldiers. Terror. Let me speak with them, Veltar demanded. The medical chief, a kindly creature from a species that specialized in healing, shook her head. They are not ready. They have been through severe trauma. Whatever happened to them has left deep psychological scars. I don't care about their mental state, Veltar snapped. I need to know what happened to the fleet. The medical chief's multiple eyes fixed on him sadly. Ambassador, I have been treating trauma victims for 60 years. I have never seen anything like this. These soldiers are broken. They speak of things that cannot be real. Despite the medical chief's protests, Veltar was eventually allowed into the recovery ward. He approached Sub-Commander Yakarin's bed slowly. Yakarin had been one of the hegemony's finest officers, a veteran of 12 successful campaigns. Now he lay curled in a ball, his gray skin pale and his eyes darting constantly to the corners of the room. Sub-Commander, Veltar said quietly. It's Ambassador Veltar. Can you hear me? Yakarin's eyes focused slowly. When he recognized Veltar, his entire body began to shake. They knew, he whispered. They knew we were coming. Who knew? The humans? Not just humans. Yakarin's voice was barely audible. Something else. Something that looked human, but wasn't. Their ships. Their ships were wrong. Veltar leaned closer. Explain. Yakarin struggled to sit up. When we arrived at Earth, everything seemed normal. One small planet, some primitive orbital stations that looked like communication satellites, a few chemical rockets in space docks. The Admiral was pleased. He said it would be over in hours. What changed? The satellites moved. Yakarin's voice cracked. They weren't communication devices. They were weapons. Weapons like nothing we've ever seen. They moved impossibly fast and fired beams of light that cut through our hull armor like it was paper. Veltar felt his skin growing cold. How many satellites? Hundreds. Maybe thousands. They had been hiding all around the system, disguised as debris and asteroids. When we dropped out of faster-than-light travel, they activated. But our shields did nothing, Yakarin interrupted. Their weapons passed right through them. And then their ships came. Ships? Veltar's voice was barely a whisper. Yakarin nodded, his eyes distant with memory. They emerged from behind the planet, from asteroid hiding spots, from places that should have been empty space. Sleek ships, silver and white, completely silent. They moved like living things, twisting and turning in ways that should have been impossible. How many ships? I don't know. Maybe 50. Maybe 100. But each one was wrong. They accelerated without engines. They turned without thrusters. They fired weapons that bent space itself. Veltar felt his legs growing weak. What about the ground assault? Did any ships make it to the planet? Yakarin laughed, but it was a broken sound. Ground assault? Ambassador, we never got within 10 million kilometers of Earth. Their ships surrounded us, and then... He paused, his breathing rapid. Then they spoke to us. Spoke? On all frequencies in perfect hegemony language. A voice said, "You have 30 seconds to surrender or be destroyed." Admiral Cuxter ordered all ships to attack immediately. And? It was over in 6 hours. 6 hours, Ambassador. A hegemony fleet that had conquered 47 worlds. Destroyed in 6 hours by a species that was supposed to be primitive. Veltar's mind reeled. That's impossible. Humans don't have faster-than-light travel. They don't have energy weapons. They barely have nuclear technology. Yakarin's eyes focused on him with sudden intensity. That's what they wanted us to think. Ambassador, those weren't primitive humans. Those were predators. Apex predators who had been pretending to be prey. Across the room, Navigation Officer Telmar had been listening. She spoke up, her voice hollow. They could have destroyed us in minutes, but they didn't. They disabled our ships first, gave cruise time to abandon ship. They were merciful? Merciful? Veltar couldn't process this. They could have killed every single one of us, Telmar continued. Their weapons were that advanced. But they destroyed the ships and let the crews escape. Most of the escape pods made it out of the system. Most? Engineer Dexlock spoke from his bed, his voice mechanical and emotionless. Some pods were captured, taken aboard the human ships. We saw the humans through the viewports when they brought prisoners aboard. What did they look like? Like humans, Dexlock said. But their eyes were different, ancient, like they had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. They looked at us with pity, Ambassador, pity. Veltar sat down heavily in a nearby chair. Did they say anything else? Give any message? Yakarin nodded slowly. Before they released us, the voice spoke again. It said, "Return to your council. Tell them what you have seen. Tell them that Earth remembers every species that has visited us, and we remember what they did. Tell them we have been patient, but our patience has limits." What did they mean by what they did? I don't know, but the voice said something else. It said, "Your kind came to our world once before, long ago. That time, none of you returned home. We have become more merciful since then." The medical ward fell silent, except for the soft humming of life support systems. Veltar stared at the 3 survivors, trying to process what he had heard. Everything he thought he knew about humans, about Earth, about the balance of power in the galaxy, was wrong. "Ambassador," Yakarin said quietly, "there's something else. When the human ships captured the other escape pods, they downloaded our navigation data. They know where we came from. They know the location of every hegemony world, every council world, every major settlement in the galaxy." Veltar's skin went completely black with fear. "Are you saying they're coming here?" "I'm saying," Yakarin whispered, "that they've probably been watching us for longer than we've known they existed. And now they know we attacked them." Outside the medical station, space looked empty and peaceful. But Veltar found himself staring into the darkness, wondering what might be out there. Watching them, waiting, for the first time in his life. The idea of human contact filled him with dread instead of anticipation. The galaxy's greatest predators had revealed themselves, and they were nothing like what anyone had expected. They were worse. The Council's greatest minds have been analyzing the escape pod for 2 days when they found it. Hidden deep within the navigation computer's memory core, buried beneath layers of standard data, was something that should not have existed. A complete file of human origin. Chief Technician Calvex, whose species had natural talent for understanding technology, made the discovery while searching for clues about the human weapons. Her 6-fingered hands moved rapidly across the control interface as data streams flowed across multiple screens. "This doesn't belong here," she muttered, her tail tip twitching with concentration. This file wasn't created by hegemony systems. Ambassador Kethver looked up from the tactical analysis he had been studying. "What kind of file?" "It appears to be a message. But the encryption is unlike anything in our databases. The structure is completely alien to our computer languages, yet somehow our systems can read it perfectly. Open it." Calvex hesitated. "Sir, if this is some form of human virus or attack program." "Open it," Kethver repeated firmly. The file activated, and immediately every screen in the analysis chamber displayed the same image, Earth, as seen from space, but not as they had ever seen it before. This was not the blue and green world from their survey data. This Earth was surrounded by a complex network of space stations, orbital platforms and ships that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. Then a voice filled the chamber. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, but with subtle differences that suggested the speaker had learned the language recently. "Greetings, Galactic Council. This message is for your leadership and their advisors. My name is David Chun, and I serve as Earth's first official representative to galactic civilization." Kethver's scales went pale. The humans spoke their language flawlessly, with an accent that suggested complete understanding of linguistic nuances that took most species decades to. "Master, you are undoubtedly confused by recent events," the voice continued, as the image shifted to show massive human ships moving through space with impossible grace. "Allow me to provide context that your historical records lack. Earth has been aware of galactic civilization for approximately 350 of your standard years. Your first survey ship, operated by the Eternal Dominion, visited our system in what you call the year 1671. They attempted to establish what they called a population reduction colony on our world." Kethver felt a chill run through his body. The Eternal Dominion had been one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, until they mysteriously disappeared 300 years ago. The crew of that ship learned something important about humanity, the voice continued. "We do not surrender. We do not submit. We do not accept conquest." The Dominion crew discovered this when their population reduction efforts were met with coordinated global resistance and technology they had not expected to encounter. The image changed again, showing what appeared to be ancient Earth human settlements, but with technology that seemed far beyond what their surveys had indicated. That ship never returned home because its crew chose to remain on Earth after their government fell. Their descendants still live among us, as do the descendants of 14 other species who have attempted conquest over the centuries. 14 other species? Kethver whispered. The human voice answered as if he had heard the question. Yes, Ambassador Kethver. We know you are listening. Your species attempted contact 87 years ago. Unlike the others, your people came in peace, seeking trade and knowledge. We welcomed them. Some chose to stay. Others returned home with our blessing, but they were sworn to secrecy about Earth's true nature. Calvex's hands were shaking as she worked the controls. The file knows we're here. It's responding to our reactions. This message was designed to activate only when discovered by Council analysis, the human voice explained. We knew that sooner or later, someone would attack Earth despite the Terran Accords. We prepared for this day. The image shifted once more, showing a view of the galaxy that was familiar yet wrong. It was the same map used by Council navigators, but it showed thousands of additional settlements, space stations, and travel routes that had never appeared in any official survey. For 3.5 centuries, we have been watching, learning, growing. We established hidden observation posts throughout Council space. We monitored your communications, your politics, your wars. We learned your languages, studied your cultures, analyzed your technology. But why? Kethver found himself asking aloud. Because we wanted to understand what kind of galaxy we lived in before revealing ourselves, the voice replied. We wanted to know if galactic civilization was worthy of human participation. The words struck like a physical blow. The idea that humans had been judging them, evaluating their worthiness, turned everything upside down. The answer, unfortunately, is mixed. Some species, like the Zephyrians and the Stellar Confederation, showed promise. Others, like the hegemony, showed only aggression and conquest. Most showed indifference to suffering, as long as it did not affect them personally. The image changed to show council meetings from decades past, recorded from impossible angles with clarity that suggested the humans had been present in the chamber itself. The Terran Accords were not created to protect humans from galactic civilization. They were created because certain ancient species remembered their encounters with Earth and warned the Council that contact would not go well for the galaxy. The Eternal Dominion's surviving leadership, living in exile after their empire's fall, convinced enough Council members to vote for isolation. But you attacked one of our fleets, Calvex said to the recording. We defended ourselves against unprovoked aggression, the voice corrected. The hegemony fleet came to our system with the intention of conquering our world and enslaving our people. We responded appropriately. Appropriately? Kethver's voice cracked. You destroyed 200 ships. We could have destroyed them in the first 60 seconds of contact, the voice said calmly. Our weapons technology is approximately 400 years ahead of the most advanced Council systems. Instead, we disabled their ships and allowed 97% of their crews to escape. This was mercy, not aggression. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. If humans were telling the truth, they had been restraining themselves. The destruction of the hegemony fleet was not their full capability, but rather their gentlest response to attack. However, the voice continued, the attack on Earth has forced our hand. We can no longer remain in isolation. The existence of species willing to attack worlds they consider primitive presents a danger to other developing civilizations throughout the galaxy. The image changed one final time, showing a single ship approaching the Council station. It was sleek, silver, and completely unlike anything in their design databases. This message will conclude when our diplomatic vessel arrives at your station in approximately 6 hours. We request an immediate assembly of the full council. Earth will be sending its first official ambassador to address your leadership. But understand this clearly. We are not coming as supplicants seeking membership in your organization. We are coming as equals who will be involved in galactic governance, whether you approve or not. The age of human isolation is ending. The question before you is simple. Will this transition be cooperative, or will it be forced upon you? The message ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Kethver looked at Calvex, whose normally calm demeanor had completely cracked. How long until that ship arrives? She checked her instruments with trembling hands. 5 hours and 47 minutes, sir. Send an emergency message to all council members. Full assembly, immediately. And someone find Ambassador Veltar. He needs to know that his worst fears have just come true. As Kethver left the chamber, he wondered if the council would still exist by tomorrow. For the first time in galactic history, they were about to meet their equals, or perhaps their superiors. The human ship arrived exactly when promised, materializing out of faster-than-light travel with impossible precision directly beside the council station. No species in galactic history had ever achieved such accurate navigation. Most vessels arrived within a few thousand kilometers of their target. The human ship appeared less than 100 meters from the station's docking port. Ambassador Veltar stood at the observation window, watching the sleek vessel through reinforced, transparent aluminum. The ship was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, its silver hull reflecting the station's lights like a mirror made of liquid metal. No visible engines, no obvious weapons, no external features that made sense according to known physics. How is it staying in position? He asked Chief Engineer Baxmoil, who was monitoring the situation from the command center. We don't know, Baxmoil replied, his multiple arms working frantically at control panels. It has no visible propulsion, but it's maintaining perfect position relative to our station. Our sensors can't penetrate its hull. For all we can tell, it's just a solid piece of metal, but that's impossible. Through the station's communication system, a calm voice spoke in perfect galactic standard. Council Station Control. This is Earth Diplomatic Vessel Harmony requesting permission to dock. We have one passenger seeking an audience with your leadership. Jarene's voice crackled through the intercom from the council chambers. Permission granted. Welcome to Council Space, Earth Vessel. The docking process was unlike anything the station crew had ever witnessed. The human ship seemed to flow against the docking port like liquid, its hull shifting and adapting until it formed a perfect seal. No mechanical arms, no careful maneuvering, no complex calculations. The ship simply moved as if it were alive. 20 minutes later, the council chambers had filled with every available representative. Even species that rarely attended physical meetings had sent delegates. Word of the human arrival had spread throughout the station, and everyone wanted to witness this historic moment. The chamber doors opened, and Earth's first galactic ambassador entered. The figure was surprisingly ordinary. Average height for a human, with dark skin and graying hair. He wore simple clothes that appeared to be made from natural fibers. The only unusual feature was his eyes, which held the same ancient quality the survivors had described. Eyes that had seen too much and understood more than they should. My name is Marcus Washington, he said, his voice carrying clearly throughout the chamber without any technological amplification. I represent Earth in its first official contact with galactic civilization. Jarene's tentacles moved in formal greeting patterns. Welcome, Ambassador Washington. We are honored by your presence, though the circumstances are unfortunate. Marcus nodded politely. Indeed they are. The unprovoked attack on Earth has forced us to abandon a policy of peaceful isolation that we have maintained for centuries. This saddens us greatly." Ambassador Veltar stood shakily. "On behalf of the hegemony, I formally apologize for the unauthorized military action against your world. The decision to attack was made without council knowledge or approval." Marcus turned to look at him, and Veltar felt the weight of those ancient eyes. "Ambassador Veltar, your apology is noted but insufficient. The attack on Earth was not an accident or a miscommunication. It was a deliberate act of aggression against what you believed was a defenseless world. But we thought," Veltar began. "You thought we were primitive," Marcus interrupted. "You thought we were weak. You thought we could be conquered easily. These thoughts led you to launch a military fleet to subjugate and enslave 8 billion human beings. Your assumptions about our capabilities do not excuse the intent." The chamber fell silent. Marcus walked slowly around the circular table, his eyes taking in each representative. "For 3.5 centuries, we have watched this council. We have seen the good you have accomplished, the peaceful resolution of conflicts, the sharing of knowledge, the protection of developing species. We have also seen the evil you have allowed, the enslavement of entire worlds, the casual genocide of species deemed inconvenient, the systematic exploitation of those too weak to resist." Ambassador Kirith leaned forward. "If you have been watching us for so long, why did you not reveal yourself sooner?" Marcus paused beside the Stellar Confederation's delegation. "Because we hoped you would grow beyond your current limitations without our intervention. We hoped that galactic civilization would evolve naturally toward justice and peace. Instead, we watched you become comfortable with inequality, oppression, and the rule of force." "But you used force against our fleet," Veltar protested. "We used the minimum force necessary to defend our world against unprovoked aggression," Marcus replied. "We could have destroyed your entire fleet in seconds. Instead, we disabled your ships and allowed your crews to escape. Even now, the surviving members of your fleet are being treated as guests on Earth while we determine what to do with them." "Guests?" Veltar's voice cracked. "Prisoners would imply we intended punishment. We do not. Your soldiers were following orders from their government. We hold them no ill will, though they did attempt to enslave our entire species." Marcus reached the head of the table where Jarane sat. "Council leader, Earth is prepared to offer a proposal that will benefit all species in this galaxy. But first, we must address the immediate issue of the hegemony's actions. What do you require?" Jarane asked. "The hegemony leadership who authorized the attack on Earth will surrender themselves for trial. This trial will be conducted by a joint tribunal including representatives from Earth, the Council, and neutral parties. Those found guilty will face appropriate consequences." Veltar's gray skin went completely black. "The hegemony will never agree to that." Marcus looked at him with what might have been pity. "Ambassador, the hegemony no longer has a choice in the matter. 3 hours ago, Earth vessels arrived at each of your major military installations. They have been disabled, not destroyed, but your species no longer possesses the capability to wage war against anyone." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Representatives began speaking in their native languages, demanding explanations, voicing fears and protests. Marcus waited patiently for the chaos to subside. "Please understand," he continued once order was restored, "we take no pleasure in this action. But the hegemony has spent centuries conquering and enslaving other species. Their attack on Earth was simply the latest in a long pattern of aggression. This pattern ends now. Are you conquering us?" asked Ambassador Wexmol, his insect form clicking rapidly with agitation. "No," Marcus replied. "We are establishing oversight. Earth will be taking an active role in galactic governance to ensure that no species suffers the fate that Earth was intended to experience. We will help mediate disputes, prevent genocides, and protect developing worlds from exploitation. And if we refuse? Jeanne asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was sad but firm. Then you will discover that our patience, while considerable, is not infinite. We have given galactic civilization 3.5 centuries to prove that it could govern itself justly. The attack on Earth demonstrated that this experiment has failed. So you are conquering us, Kirith said. We are saving you from yourselves, Marcus corrected. And more importantly, we are saving the thousands of developing species throughout the galaxy from experiencing what Earth would have suffered if the hegemony had succeeded. He returned to the center of the chamber. Earth offers partnership, not domination. We want to work with you to build a better galaxy. Our technology, our resources, our knowledge are available to any species willing to commit to justice and peace. But the choice is no longer optional. The age of conquest, slavery, and casual genocide ends today. Species that embrace this new reality will find Earth to be a generous ally. Those that resist. Marcus paused, letting the implications sink in. Those that resist will find that humanity's greatest strength has never been our technology. It has been our absolute refusal to accept injustice, regardless of the cost. The chamber fell into a silence so complete that the soft humming of life support systems seemed loud. Every representative understood that the galaxy had just changed forever. I propose, Marcus said finally, that we establish a new governmental structure. The Galactic Council will continue to exist, but with Earth as a permanent member with veto power over military actions. No species will be permitted to attack another without justification that satisfies both the Council and Earth. And if we agree? Jeanne asked. Then Earth will share technologies that will revolutionize your civilizations. Medical advances that will extend lifespans and eliminate diseases. Energy sources that will end scarcity. Transportation systems that will connect the galaxy like never before. We will help build a golden age of peace and prosperity. Marcus walked toward the chamber doors, then paused. You have 72 hours to decide. Earth's diplomatic mission will remain here during that time to answer questions and negotiate details. But understand this. The decision you make will determine whether humanity's role in galactic affairs is as a partner or as a guardian. The choice is yours. As the doors closed behind him, the representative sat in stunned silence. Outside the chamber windows,